Well, let me ask you this. I've looked at some of the polling in your state. You're a very popular governor, and you're a Democratic governor in a state that is a pretty closely politically divided state. So here's the first question for you. If someone says, look, I like Governor Josh Shapiro, maybe I'm a Republican, I'm an independent, I'm a sort of centrist, but what has the Biden-Harris administration done, right? I think things are pretty good in Pennsylvania. I approve my governor. Seems like jobs are doing pretty well. The economy's doing pretty well. I chalk it up to a state-level apparatus. There's nothing happening down in D.C. other than things screwing us. What do you say to that kind of voter?
Look, I would say to the good people of Pennsylvania, yes, we've cut taxes 4 times here in the Commonwealth. We've made historic investments in education, in public safety, and economic development. Things are going well. We've got a lot more work to do, but things are going well. And I understand that politics is a team game here, meaning you got to have partners in this. I'm the only governor in the entire country with a divided legislature, one house led by Democrats, one led by Republicans. We've managed to get all that done. It's a team sport here, but it's also a team sport when it comes to having an administration who can work with us. One of the reasons why we're excelling when it comes to energy production is because of the strong relationship we have with the Biden-Harris administration. One of the reasons why we fixed more roads and bridges than ever before is because of our partnership with the Biden-Harris administration. We've got kids who are able to turn the tap on and not drink water with lead in it because of the Biden-Harris administration and their commitments to us. We've got folks in rural communities in Pennsylvania who are now getting the high-speed internet turned on for the first time because of our partnership with the Biden-Harris administration. So I would say to the good people of Pennsylvania, yes, we've made a lot of strides. I couldn't be more proud to be your governor and enjoy support from Democrats, Republicans, and independents. But I've had a great partnership with the Biden-Harris administration that's allowed me to do so much of this work. And let me tell you something. I want that to continue. I want Pennsylvania to continue to get its fair share from the federal government, to have a president that I can call and lean on when times are tough, when, like we did when I-95 collapsed, we had a president who we could call who would be there for us. I know Kamala Harris can be that president for the entire nation and certainly for the good people of Pennsylvania.
There's a lot of focus on your state, I think, because of the vagaries of the Electoral College. There's a lot of reason to think it will be a sort of tipping point state, a kind of must-win state. There's polling that showed today Kamala Harris up by a point. It's clear it's very close there. There's also a lot of nerves about Pennsylvania. So I'm going to ask you a question that you can't answer, but people want to hear what you would say, which is basically like,
okay,
what's going on there? Like, how's it looking? Is it close? Do you have any sense of where this is going? Who's going to win?
Yeah, look, I mean, it seems like maybe the one thing Kamala Harris and Donald Trump agree on is that Pennsylvania is the tipping point state, the deciding state. And here's what I'll say. I mean, it looks to be basically a dead even race for president. And by the way, it also looks to be an even race for the United States Senate. And I need Bob Casey in the United States Senate. He is an outstanding U.S. Senator. And, head on over to bobcasey.com and chip in $2, $3, $4, whatever you can afford. Bob needs our help. But when it comes to the presidential race, understand that in Pennsylvania, maybe looking at sort of on a football field, you can maybe get 49 yards up your side of the field. Mm-hmm. But grabbing that extra yard and a half, 2 yards to get to the other side of the field is really, really tough. This is a tough state to compete in and win in. The good news is what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are doing is showing up in the communities that need to meet them, the communities that are oftentimes ignored or left behind. I mean, right before they went to the DNC in Chicago, they weren't in Philly or Pittsburgh, and I love Philly and Pittsburgh, but they went to rural Beaver County. That's in the corner down by Ohio and West Virginia. I think just yesterday and today, Tim Walz was in rural Lancaster County and up in Erie and rural Fayette County. They're showing up in the communities that need to hear from them, need to understand, what they're all about, kind of kick the tires and understand more. And I think as Pennsylvanians get more familiar with the vice president and the governor, they are going to see them as the people who can help move not just our Commonwealth, but our entire country forward.
You spoke at the Democratic National Convention. You had a primetime speaking slot. You talked about what's been going on in Pennsylvania. You talked about also being proud of your faith as a Jewish American, one of the most prominent Jewish politicians in the Democratic Party, which features a number of folks, including Chuck Schumer and others. I want to just get your reaction to something that the Donald Trump says a lot about Jewish Americans, which is that they're crazy. They need to get their head examined. They're essentially betraying who they are if they vote for Democrats, saying if you had Democrats to support you were Jewish, you have to have your head examined. He warns that Israel will no longer exist if Vice President Kamala Harris becomes president. He's used the word Palestinian as a slur against Chuck Schumer to say that, quote, he's almost like a Palestinian. I'm curious how that strikes your ears.
Look, I think it is more of the same from Donald Trump. I have been the recipient of many attacks from Donald Trump, including anti-Semitic attacks from Donald Trump over the years, as have the people of Pennsylvania and the American people. Donald Trump is someone who peddles bigotry and hatred. He constantly tries to create others in our society, separate people out based on what they look like, where they come from, who they love, who they pray to. And it is something that is deeply offensive, I think, to many people. And, you know, not just as a governor, but as a father of four, I try and raise our kids to love thy neighbor, to care about their fellow man, their fellow woman. And, you know, we should have a leader of this nation, a leader of the free world who at least meets those standards that most parents try and hold their children to. When you look at what Donald Trump has specifically said to American Jews, this notion of this dual loyalty where American Jews can only care about Israel, that is deeply offensive to me and to many others. I'm a proud American Jew, and I care about Israel. I also care about health care. I care about our kids' education. I care about our national security. I care about a whole host of issues, as many American Jews do. And sort of going with this notion of dual loyalty that Jews only have to care about Israel, and by the way, have to have the exact same views on Israel, I think is deeply offensive and deeply troublesome. Donald Trump sort of fails that test that parents set for their kids. He has failed the test as commander-in-chief before. We do not want to hand him the keys back to the White House where he can continue to try and divide us, offend people, and spew more hatred and bigotry in our society.
You've got a state where early voting starts very soon, September 16th, if I'm not mistaken. It's a state, you know, 4 years ago, you and I spoke a number of times in that period, in the run-up to the election, after the election, serving as Attorney General for the state of Pennsylvania. And one of the things you had to do was go into court and basically preserve the kind of integrity of the state's election system underneath the sort of fuselage of lawsuits from the Trump campaign and others. Are you confident about the election infrastructure in your state, about the sort of these kind of county level canvassing boards, any kind of mischief that folks in the Trump campaign might get up to get people to not do what is essentially their legal duty to count, certify votes?
Yeah. In 2020 here in Pennsylvania, we had a free and fair, safe and secure election. And I am absolutely confident that we will, again, in 2024, have a free and fair, safe and secure election. Our elections are now being led by my appointee as Secretary of the Commonwealth, Secretary of State, and that is Al Schmidt. I would note that Al is a Republican because I believe that the administration of elections in this country should not be partisan exercises. We can have our partisan choices for candidates, but the running of elections is something that really needs to be nonpartisan. Al is leading that way, as are clerks all across Pennsylvania, Republican and Democrat alike, who are working very hard to make sure that we have integrity yet again in our process. Unfortunately, we are already beginning to see the lawsuits and the threats of lawsuits come from Donald Trump and his allies. The good news is our courts here in Pennsylvania just in recent days have consistently in their rulings sided on enfranchisement, not the kind of disenfranchisement that Donald Trump pushed for back in 2020 and is again threatening this time. We will again have a free and fair, safe and secure election. I have great confidence in the people who are overseeing it at both the state and county level, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that whether you choose to vote from home by mail or you choose to vote in person, your vote will be counted. It'll be counted quickly, and of course, the will of the people will be respected.